Hi everyone, good Thursday afternoon and welcome to a special edition of GoLocal Live. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel. I'd like to welcome in my guests, starting with Howard Fuller, Founding Director of the Institute for Transformation of Learning at Marquette University, former Milwaukee Superintendent of Schools, co-founded the Malcolm X Liberation University in Durham. In town today to speak at the Met High School Black Box Theater this evening on his book, No Struggle, No Progress. And of course, Dennis Lickey, Met School co-founder and co-founder of College Unbound, which is pretty much the crux of the talk this evening that we're going to hear about. So I'm going to start with you, Dennis, about bringing Howard into town and what you'd like to hear from him this evening.
Great. So Howard and I met 25 years ago. He was there the first day of the Met. 10 years ago, I founded College Unbound, which is a college for adults who have left school at some time and want to come back to school. And it's helping people be leaders, fight for social justice. That's what Howard's been doing his whole life. And he's been back and forth a few times, but we thought we'd really bring him here tonight, the College Unbound event at the Met, and have him talk about his struggles, his progress, and to really help people understand College Unbound. And we're trying to give bachelor's degrees to a more diverse population to be leaders in this state. And that's what Howard's going to be talking about. So it's great to have you here, Howard.
Hey, it's great to be here, Dennis.
Well, thanks for coming in. I want to talk a little bit, let's start with the book and then move towards that College Unbound model. So what are you going to be sharing with folks this evening from No Struggle, No Progress?
Well, I think what we want to do is, because College Unbound is about social justice, and my book, which is a memoir, is about, my struggles over the years. And so what I want to try to do is to just talk to people about the whole notion of social justice and then connect that to the work that Dennis is doing with College Unbound. And then, it's going to be pretty much driven by people's questions. Like, I'm not going to, bore people with a long speech or anything like that. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion.
And, the title of the book and what you're going to talk about, this sort of universal kind of theme of the struggle. I mean, so many challenges facing young people today. And the College Unbound model, again, that outside-the-box thinking, if you will, to get young people that college education. How much does that struggle play into the day-to-day life of any student leading up through high school and college?
Well, I think it's a particularly difficult thing for adults who have, dropped out of school and now they're trying to live their lives and they got all the issues and pressures and all of that that comes. But to be able to come back and have a school that will give them credit for their life experiences, for example, that understands they can't be sitting in a classroom for 8 hours, that it's 3 hours a week. They, their projects, there's all kinds of ways for them to, quote, get credit. And so, Dennis is kind of crazy, but he's also like a genius. And so this is just one great idea that he's had.
And talk a little bit about that, Dennis. What these students sort of bring they bring with them when they come to College Unbound, as Howard alluded to, a whole set of experiences that, contributed to their education and not necessarily in a traditional setting.
Right. And a lot of times people look for adults who haven't got their bachelor degree like, oh, they must not be so smart. They're incredible because they've been working 5, 10, 15, 20 years, really being out in the community, being leaders in the community. They just don't have that degree. So we look from day one, we help them turn that experience into classes for credit. We find all kinds of ways, things they're doing right now. They might be leading an organization. They can get credit for that. They read Howard's book. They write a paper. So it's really capitalizing on who they are.
And let's talk a little bit about that model, that College Unbound model. A lot of folks do know of it here in Rhode Island, but nationally, is this where an avenue that educators are really looking to pursue? Again, not that stringent, inside-the-box, K-16 and further model.
Well, I would say, unfortunately, it's not a national model because you don't have people like Dennis in every single place, right? And it's taken them 10 years. I mean, we're just celebrating the fact that finally they're going to be able to get financial aid, right? And so the way this whole process is set up, it's not set up to have this type of innovation. And so now that he's got it all set in Rhode Island, almost all set, because I know how his mind works, he's going to be trying to figure out, okay, how do I get this in the rest of the country? And I hope I'm going to be able to help him if he ever decides.
Milwaukee next. Milwaukee next. So, Kate, it was kind of like the Met. We set up the Met School, and then some philanthropists found it and said, this is a great model. Nobody else was really doing that model, but got us to go around. So now we have 75 Met schools in the United States, over 100 around the country. So I hope that happens to College Unbound, starting in Milwaukee.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Well, clearly we've got the roots in Milwaukee. Let's talk a little bit about the Institute for Transformation of Learning. Tell us a little bit about your role there and sort of what that institute looks at and sort of the research that it's done.
Well, I started the Institute in 1995 after I resigned from being the superintendent of Milwaukee Public Schools. And people who know universities know that institutes are just like platforms to allow you to do work. And so I was able to set this institute up and allow me to do the work that I wanted to do. So for example, at one point in time, we were like an incubator for people who wanted to start schools.
Okay.
I use it to go around the country and do what I do now, to be able to come here, do speeches. We've trained people to be school leaders in addition to just, teaching and so forth. And I've always been into learning as opposed to schooling. And we've used the Institute to promote policies that support parent choice, for example. Particularly, I give low-income and working-class parents the ability to choose the best school for their children. So we do a variety of different things at the Institute.
And how much does a role? We report here on a number of education issues. Let's maybe roll it back to K-12. Obviously, still continues to be a challenge to get students here, especially in Rhode Island, where they need to be. What are the myriad of opportunities, charter schools, public charters, mayoral academies, how do they fit into the picture of trying to best address the need of that child who, as the common theme here is, again, not fitting necessarily inside that box, but might need to look for other educational and learning approaches?
Yeah, I mean, Dennis can speak to this too, but to me, there is no one best system. What we really need are a variety of different options. And the reality of it is that those of us who got money, we got choice. Because if schools don't work for our kids, we're either going to move, or we're going to put them in private schools, or we're going to get the best tutoring on the planet. The problem is trying to figure out how is it that low-income and working-class people can have some of those options.
Yeah. And I think anybody that's trying to do good things, whether it be a charter school or a state school, or that's just important because we need a lot of options. And we tried to build the Met, the big picture philosophy is that every kid has their own curriculum. So if his needs are different than mine, he can meet them within our school. And that's what seems to have caught on. People now understand that there's one size doesn't fit anything.
So this discussion of College Unbound and bringing in Howard and this talk of perhaps looking at Milwaukee, Dennis, is that really that next step for College Unbound, looking at other opportunities around the country? Well,
we're trying to get our proof point down, get it done so it's very good. We've had pretty amazing results over the last years. And then we're ready. We never thought it would just be a school for Rhode Island. We always thought eventually it would be something for the 37 million people that started school and didn't finish. And the last piece I want to say, Kate, is that when we look at one of our emphasis tonight is when we look at the leadership in Rhode Island, it's so not diverse. And so we're giving out scholarships if people want to recommend somebody who they think could be a leader, become governor, be head of their community center, but doesn't have their degree but has that potential. We're giving scholarships, and our one major is organization, leadership, and change to get a bachelor's degree. So go College Unbound. Go Howard, go Kate.
How much of a role do previous students play when you were out there, both Met students, College Unbound students, and sort of what the experience that they went through when you're talking to new parents and folks who might be interested?
So here's the great part. I'm very fortunate. We've had thousands of students graduate, so I run into them everywhere I go. And they come up to me and they don't, one, they come up to their principal, that's good. Two, they don't come up and say, oh, I had a good education there. 95% come up and say, thank you, it changed my life. And that's what we're about doing. We're about the education, but we're about, that's why Howard named his center that. We're about helping kids transform themselves to be successful, to be well and do good, as Howard's been saying. So.
And how important, especially in light of events that we've seen nationally this week, and let's talk again about diverse array of educational options. What we saw unveiled, which I think folks knew all along, such the importance placed on the marquee institutions and parents basically taking, as we're looking at potentially criminal actions to get their students into the schools. Is this a turning point moment for people to have conversations about what does a higher education degree mean? Because we've seen it really debased basically in the last few days in terms of how some parents have approached it for their students. But you know, with such this emphasis, and especially depending on families and backgrounds, to have their children in, again, these schools, I mean, what should people be talking about in light of what we've seen this week in this national scandal?
Well, I would say that, first of all, I'm reluctant to say anything is a turning point, right? We got all these turning points that somehow don't turn. And the reality of it is that, as you said, this is really not new. What's new is that it came out, right? The fact of the matter is...
They got caught.
That we have a country where privilege is critical. Financial privilege, white skin privilege, whatever privileges you want to talk about. So it isn't like all of a sudden that's going to go away in America, right? So it'll be interesting to see how long the talk will go on. And then more interesting, is anything different? Is it going to change the reality that this particular incident is brought out to us? And I have to say, put me on the pessimist list in terms of this is really going to lead to sweeping change. I would hope so, but I'm a pessimist.
Yeah, and my thing is, it's kind of, I'm at the opposite end of that in a beautiful way. You want to go back to college? We help you in any way we can to get you through, which is the opposite of those colleges brag about how many people they turn down. So,
but College Unbound presents an opportunity again for students to get that degree. And you've had some conversations since you've been here in town. Talk with us a little bit what you've been setting up for Howard as he's been here talking with folks in the program.
Yeah. Well, whenever Dennis brings me into town, it isn't like I can come in and chill, right? So it's like, okay, I'm picking up at 7:45, we meet with this group, and then at 9, and then at 10, and then at 12, and then at 1, and then I'm gonna give you a break between 1 and 3. Then you gotta be back at 4. And,
yeah.
But I love it. You know,
he did ask if he was gonna get food today for lunch.
As we like to say, we ate yesterday.
I told him it was at one of the meetings.
So, you know, it gives me a chance to talk with students, gives me a chance to talk with his staff. And then, you know, tonight I'll be able to talk to whomever comes, right? You know, so I'm looking forward to it.
And a final question, Howard, while I have you here, again, wearing perhaps that school choice hat. You know, it's 2019. We see sort of state by states approach that sort of school choice, you know, whether it be from a voucher or a tax credit program. You said you're always reluctant to talk about turning points, certainly. But, you know, when you see these waiting lists, and the waiting lists are extreme here in Rhode Island as they are in the rest of the country, for parents who just say, I want an other option, you know, is this ever politically going to be feasible to be able to meet the demand of these families who say, please just let us have another opportunity that we would like to be able to pursue?
Well, it's going to be politically feasible if we make it so. So I happen to have been there in the beginning in 1989 when we passed the first voucher bill in Wisconsin, and then involved in the development of the charter movement. So I'm old enough, or old, whichever way you put it, to have been back there in the beginning. And when we started, nobody thought we would be at this point today. So this does give some credence to there can be turning points, that there can be things that happen that historically makes things different. And so my hope is that what we started back then is going to continue, but it's going to continue under different historical conditions. There are going to be different models than what we thought of back in the beginning. But I don't think we can ever go back to the idea of the one best system.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, I'm glad that I was able to get both of you in here in studio tonight before the talk just taking place at what time?
5:30 food, 6 o'clock, Howard goes on.
Okay, 5:30 food, maybe some socializing, and then hearing from Howard Fuller, author of No Struggle, No Progress. You can hear Howard's story, again, his views on College Unbound and the education system across the country in general. So we'll provide that information after the fact as well. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to come in.
Thank you, Kate.
I appreciate it.
All right, I'll do my College Unbound shirt. I'm ready.
Giving the plugs. Well, again, thank you for watching here at Go Local Live. We'll be back later on this afternoon, so we look forward to seeing you here at Go Local Prof. I'm Go Local News Editor Kate Nagel.
Beautiful.
Fantastic.